watching you all's faces, priceless, priceless. See, you never know what's going to happen at the White House. Okay, all right, let's breathe. Come on. Everyone, let's breathe, even the moms. Well, while everybody's getting settled, I just want to welcome you to the White House. Hi. How are you? Good afternoon. So let me just say, the White House is buzzing with excitement today as we celebrate the rhythmic groove of Memphis Soul. Thank you, Daniel. It's taking care of my hometown girl, Mavis Staples. We are just so thrilled to have you. Sure you want to be? You don't have to be on that stool at all. You do what you want to do. So we need a little step stool is what we need. All right.
She packs a big punch. Don't worry.
I know. We're just thrilled to have you. I want to start by thanking our wonderful guest for taking the time because, you know, we ask a lot from people when they come and perform. I was just joking. It slowly turns into an all-day affair, but the degree to which everyone so graciously offers their time on a day like this, it just warms my heart, and we are just so grateful. Let me introduce everyone on the stage. For those of you who don't know, we have Bob Santelli from the Grammy Museum, who has been here a number of times with me. And of course, these 5 incredible musicians, Sam Moore. Mavis Staples. And I don't know if you guys recognize this young gentleman in the middle, Justin Timberlake. Charlie Musselwhite. And Ben Harper. Thank you all so much. It is a true honor to have you all here in the stateroom of the White House. But in addition to these icons and legends, we are also thrilled to have with us today some other stars. All of our young people, you all are our stars. Yes. We have students here from all over the country, some folks from California, New York, Florida, Maryland, Virginia, right here in D.C., and the hometown crowd from Stax Music Academy in Memphis. Yes, Memphis is in the house. Now, over the past few years, we've hosted workshops like these to give young people like all of you the opportunity to learn and explore everything from country and classical music to modern dance and poetry. Just last week, we hosted a group of young people here for the screening of the movie 42, which is the story of Jackie Robinson's life. And afterward, the students had a chance to talk about the film with the director, the lead actors, as well as to hear directly from Mrs. Rachel Robinson, who's the wife of Jackie Robinson. So we have hosted many great conversations in this room. This is also where we host state dinners, and diplomats and world leaders are here, and you all are here too, right here. So we are thrilled to have you all here today as we continue this tradition and turn our attention to Memphis Soul. Memphis, Tennessee is the birthplace of both Elvis Presley's rock and roll and B.B. King's blues. And while you can hear both of those influences in Memphis Soul, this music has a style and a story uniquely its own. Back in 1957, a young man started a record label out of his garage. The next year, his sister took out a second mortgage on her house to help him buy some new recording equipment. And just a few years later, their company, Stax Records, was churning out nationwide hits. And soon enough, Memphis had a few more record labels and its own brand of soul thanks to performers like Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, the Staples Singers, Isaac Hayes, and of course, somebody my husband thinks he sounds like, the Reverend Al Green. Let's just tell him he does, okay? Since he is the president, we like to boost him up a little bit. But today, that music is still alive. Ben and Charlie teamed up on a new album from Stax that came out earlier this year. But the best way to understand this music is to hear it and feel it. So in a little bit, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, and you're going to have a chance to hear some stories and songs from these folks up here on stage who have so graciously given their time. But look, as you listen, I want you all to keep one thing in mind. And I try to say this to every young person that I encounter that walks through those doors. But realize that none of these folks up here arrived here on the basis of talent alone. They're here because they've been working hard to perfect their craft since they were at least your age, and many of them even younger. Ben Harper first picked up a guitar at age 6. Mavis Staples and Sam Moore have both been performing since they were kids, singing gospel music in church. When Charlie Musselwhite was getting started, he had to fit in his gigs between shifts at his factory job. And when Justin first started touring, he would immediately go to the bus to watch a tape of his performance, taking notes so that the next night he would be even better. So for decades, these folks have been practicing until their fingers were numb and their voices were shot. They've been in the studio for 12, 14 hours a day or more, rehearsing and refining until they got every song just right. And I know that most of you here are also involved in music as well, which means I know you spend a lot of time memorizing scales and learning theory. And sometimes that aspect of music isn't always that much fun. But I want to emphasize, and I think these people up here will back me up, that the only way for you to become the best musician you can be is pushing through those moments when something doesn't seem fun, by spending hours in the practice room repeating those scales and drilling into that theory. And if you do all that, you do it over and over again, you might become a better performer than you ever imagined. And even if you don't go into music as a career, the skills you learn through music can stay with you your whole life. And that was certainly true for me. When I was young, I played the piano. Now, as I try to remind my kids, I regret the fact that I didn't keep it up. I try to tell them that every single day. But I still remember the hours that it would take to learn just one section of a song. The discipline, the patience, the diligence I learned through the study of music. Those are all skills that I apply every single day in my life. I applied them as a student, as a lawyer, as a first lady, and definitely as a mother. So every moment of every day, you have the chance to commit yourselves to your craft and stick with it, especially when those times, gets a little hard. Just stick with it. And also, you guys know that you have to educate yourselves. That is first and foremost. Learn from everyone you can. Learn from everyone you can and take advantage of every opportunity that you find. And right now, you've got an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the greatest musicians our country has to offer. So I want you to relax, loosen up, be comfortable, ask a lot of questions. Don't be shy. The cameras will leave, the lights will turn down a little bit. So I want you to take full advantage of being here. Find out what it took for them to be who they are. Find out what it takes for them to maintain who they are. But I want you all to remember that nothing happens without hard work. And I want you all to recommit yourselves to the work that you're going to do in your lives, because we need you all to be the next generation of leaders in whatever you do. And we have complete faith that you all will. So it is an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob so you all can get this party started. Thank you all so much. Have fun.
As the First Lady said, this isn't the first time we've done this here at the White House. The Obama administration has been gracious enough to allow American music to come into this room, into this house, to allow not just the celebration of the music, but also to pass along the inspiration and information that comes with these great American music forms. Last night, we spoke about the blues, but we've also been here for country music and the music of the civil rights era. We've talked about classical music and so many others, because when you think about America, and you think about what art form so accurately reflects who we are as Americans, the first thing that comes to anyone's mind, including myself, is music. We are a nation of immigrants, and every immigrant who came to this country, no matter from where or when, brought an element of music with them. And thanks to that immigrant experience, what we have now is one of the most diverse, most exciting, most compelling music traditions that any country has ever had. Today, we're going to talk about soul music. And in 1967, a young man named Arthur Conley asked young America a very, very important question on the radio. This is what it was. Okay, do you like soul music? Right? Last night we talked about call and response, and there was Arthur Conley saying, do you like good music? Do you like soul music? And that audience was saying, yeah, yeah. And so did the rest of America in 1967. Because at the time, soul music was just beginning to reach its zenith or high point in the 1960s as a great American music form. There were lots of other things that were happening in 1967 as well. For instance, the great late Otis Redding, he was around. And he did something very, very important in June of 1967. There was this big music festival, the first great music festival in pop music, and that was called the Monterey Pop Festival. It occurred in June of 1967 out in California. It was mostly for rock. But all of a sudden, there were a couple of people who said, oh, there's this other guy on the bill. His name is Otis Redding. And for the first time, all of America heard Otis Redding sing soul music, which literally changed the way we listen to music. It was such an astounding performance. It was so amazing that even though Jimi Hendrix was on that bill and the Who were on that bill and many, many others, it was Otis Redding who really stole the show. He sang soul music. So the question is, what is soul music and where did it come from? Well, for that, I have to take you back a little bit in time. We spoke about the blues last night and really tried to understand the essence of the blues. In the 1930s and 20s and 40s, right up to the 1950s, most African Americans, if you were to ask them what was their music form outside of the church, it would be the blues. Okay? Now, by about 1959 or so, an artist by the name of Ray Charles comes up with a song called What I Say. And that particular song is often considered to be the very, very first soul song. Well, how did that happen? What Ray Charles did was he took the vocals, the very highly expressed vocals from the church, mixed that with the blues, and that formula becomes soul music. So for the very first time in a whole maybe 2 generations, young people are saying, you know what, that blues is my parents' music. I have a new music that represents me as a young African American. And it will become soul music. At exactly that same time, up in Detroit, Michigan, a young entrepreneur named Berry Gordy was creating a soul sound, even though we weren't yet calling it soul. He was creating a soul sound that would become known as Motown. But then also down in Memphis, same kind of situation. A guy by the name of Jim Stewart and his sister Estelle Axton, they put together a record. They didn't know a record label. They didn't know what to call it, so they took the first 2 letters of Jim Stewart's last name, ST, and they took the first 2 letters of Estelle Axton's last name, AX. They put it together, and they called it Stax. And then those 2 record labels, and even though there were a lot of other ones as well that recorded soul music, but those 2 become the principal record companies that would release so much of great American soul music. Now, up in Motown, they really kind of kick it off first. The earliest soul hits are coming from Motown, by and large, because Berry Gordy had found the formula to get on the white pop charts. And all of a sudden now, white, Black, Latino, everybody was listening to the sound coming out of Motown, this new sound of soul music. And it was a great if you will, counterpunch to what was happening also in America at the time, the arrival of the Beatles. The Beatles were coming into America for the first time. But down south, at first quietly and only in the black music communities, but then by the mid-1960s, we get another sound of soul music as well, and that is that Memphis sound. Now, it's not just Stax. There's High Records, there's Fame Records, Atlantic Records in New York City, and Atco Records in New York City. They're all producing great soul music. So by the mid-1960s, we have a soul explosion. You couldn't look at any of the pop charts from 1966 and 67 and 68 without finding a whole lot of great soul songs. Aretha Franklin, the great Aretha Franklin, took a song written by Otis Redding called Respect. You all heard that song, I'm sure. And not only was that song important as a great soul song, but it also began to now reflect what was happening in young America, because this is the time of the civil rights movement. This is the time when African Americans, especially young African Americans, are standing up and saying, this is my country too. I have a piece of it. This music is reflecting who I am as a young black man or a young black woman. And young white kids were saying, that's right, and you make great music, and this is my music too. Respect stands for me too. So all of a sudden, soul music doesn't become a black music or a white music. It becomes American music, and we all embrace it. Otis Redding, as I said, wow, what a talent he was. He could write. He wrote the song Respect. He just knocked the house down at the Monterey Pop Festival. But very, very unfortunately, he dies. He dies in December of 1967 in a plane crash. And after that, he releases one final song, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Again, you guys heard that song. Great, great soul song. But so sad that was the last song we would hear from him. There was so much more he could have given us. But there were others. There were others like James Brown, Wilson Pickett, Sam and Dave, the Staples Singers. They all created this sound. And I'm pretty sure they would agree with me. It wasn't just a name of a music. Just wasn't, well, this is what we're going to call this music. It was also the way the music was sung. What do I mean by that? I'm going to play you some quick examples, just tiny examples, so that you can more or less hear what we're saying here. There's a song by the Beatles. It's called Day Tripper. You may have heard it before. They released it's a big hit for the Beatles. Let's hear a little bit of Day Tripper by the Beatles. So that's what the Beatles sounded like. Let's see what Otis Redding does to that song. Notice the feel is really different. And it wasn't just pop or rock that was being transformed in a soul way. Listen to the Patti Page sing a country music classic called Tennessee Waltz.
I was dancing with my darling to the Tennessee Waltz when an old friend I happened to see. I introduced her to my loved one, and while they were dancing, my friend stole my sweetheart.
Okay. Now let's hear Otis Redding again play or sing Tennessee Waltz. A little different.
I was dancing with my baby through that Tennessee walk. But in old friend, I happened to see. I didn't know I was gonna see it. I introduced him to my baby. While it kept on playing, that friend stole my sweetheart away from me.
Okay. So, I'm not saying one's better than the other. All I'm saying is one's different from the other, right? A completely different feel. What Patti Page did with Tennessee Waltz is beautiful. It's considered the American classic. And what Otis did was he elevated, took it a completely different direction because soul music is so emotionally intense. It comes right out of the church. Many of the greatest soul singers learned to sing in the church. Almost all of them. You interview them, where did you learn to sing? In the church. So they had that added benefit, especially in African American churches where sounds and voices and song was so very, very important. So by the late 1960s, we are Soul America. It is a part of America's soul music. But like American music always has been and probably always will be, nothing stands still forever, not even for a little while when it comes to music, because by the early 1970s, even though soul music will continue to this day, I think Justin Timberlake is a perfect example of that, bringing soul into what he does. But we start to say, well, what else can we do? And now we have the arrival of funk. And we all heard funk music before, very close to what was going on in soul music. And then in the early 1970s, right at the time when Marvin Gaye, one of the greatest soul singers of all time, is recording some of his greatest records, there's a guy by the name of DJ Herc up in the Bronx who had just come here from Jamaica. He's creating the earliest sounds of hip-hop in his basement. So music keeps inventing and reinventing itself. It reflects who we are as Americans. Almost every generation adopts a particular kind of music for their own to represent them. And in the late 60s, in the 70s, soul music was absolutely the #1 vocal form, not just here in America, but the entire world loved and still loves one of our greatest American musical expressions, soul music. Okay, so with that said, I have a few experts up here, people who have been in that. I'm going to ask them a couple of questions about their relationship to soul music, and then you have a chance to ask some questions as well. So I'm going to start with Mavis because I mentioned the church, okay? And I know the Staples singers have a deep relationship to the church. If you'll talk about how you got started singing and that connection between soul and the church.
Well, actually, we grew up in church. My father would take us to the movies on Saturdays, take us to Sunday school Sunday morning. And my dad played guitar. He sang with the gospel group at the church. But these guys wouldn't come to rehearsal, so he decided to start his family singing. But church, I never could get in the choir because I was too little. And they didn't have a little warriors choir then. They just had teenagers. But church music is just, you just have a good time. That's why we call it good news music. And it's a fire that hits you, from the minister to the choir. And it's just you clapping and playing your tambourines, dancing. And it's just a wonderful place to start your music. Wonderful. Lots of kids are joining choirs right now to, get started with their careers.
And it was easy then to take what you were learning in the church and put that into soul music and what were you doing on the stage on Saturday nights or whatever. Right.
And we felt like singing a church song, it's all the same. Rather than saying Jesus, it's saying baby. Right.
Right. That's easy.
It is.
Jesus was a baby first.
Jesus was a baby first. He was. So they go all the way back. And it works, It's all of the soul is there, all the strength is there. But my baby left me. Jesus is with me.
That's about as simple as you can put it.
That's about as simple as I can put it.
Right. Let me ask Sam, because Sam was part of one of the great soul duos of all time, Sam and Dave, right? Absolutely. When you and Dave started out as a duo, where were your roots coming from? Were you coming from the church as well? And how do you get started in soul music?
I got started in church. And first I started trying to be a minister when I was about 6 or 7. And at first it was coming from church on Sunday. Saturday nights, morning I would get outside. It was a pulpit and a towel and a funny book as my Bible. And I would preach and I would say the same Lord's Prayer over and over. And then I would sit down and sing the same song, Jesus loves me, yes I know, then get back and preach again. Wow. That was nice. My mother didn't have any problem with that. Yeah. Then I would go to church on Sunday and I would sing. But it got unfunny when my mother stood at the door there in Miami, Florida, and I had a hat down on the ground taking up a collection. And she said, that's not funny. Maybe you want to get off of that, So I just put that away and I got into the church.
Uh-huh. And then how do you meet Dave?
I met Dave because some friends of mine was with me one night and we were passing by this club. And when you try to impress each other being as young as you are, they says to me, I bet you won't go ask for that job, Sam. Because they were looking for an MC, singer, slice, comedian. And he was, won't you do that, Sam? So I said, yeah. So I walked up there and I said to the owner, by the way, I didn't know who he was at the time, and I said, I can put in for that job. He said, yeah? What's your name? And I told him, you've ever been an MC? Yes. Where? I said, yeah, I can do the job. So he said, you can tell jokes? Yes, sir. And you can sing? Yes. Okay, when can you start? Anytime. So I came back the next night, and I got up on, and I had one song I knew, because coming from a gospel background, I didn't know but one song. So I got up and I sang Danny Boy. And the next night I sang Danny Boy. The third night I sang Danny Boy. Then they were looking for a joke and I said, knock, knock, who's there? And then the owner came to me and he said, wait a minute. First of all, you're not funny. Second of all, you don't know but one song? I said, yes, sir. He said, what? I said, Danny Boy. He said, okay. You can't sing. You can't tell jokes. Find something else for you to do. So he then gave me a job to take in for the amateur nights, putting names down, way before the Idol, putting names down. So this one fellow walked in there one night. I had heard about him because he was singing gospel with his brothers. And he walked in and I took his name and he said, I said, what's your name? He says, Dave. Dave what? Prater. I said, okay. What are you singing? And he had been singing songs by Sam Cooke, what I had heard, the attention I had been brought to me. So I said, okay, but this night he said he could do Jackie Wilson. Well, fine. So I put it down. So make a long story short, I went in and then I called and, the acts and all that stuff. And then I got to Dave, and I said, now, ladies and gentlemen, the young man been killing the country with soul of Sam Cooke. But tonight he's going to surprise you. He's going to do Jackie Wilson, dogging me around. And he got up, and I remember the organ player, he gave me the Pagio, and he sang the first chorus. Very good. When he got to the verse, you got to understand, Dave had a process. And he started sweating. And he started sweating around. When you're nervous, you sweat around the mouth. You know what I'm saying? And he froze. And I'm looking at him, and so now I don't want to, people say, "Boo." So I want to get back. I don't want to, get in the way, so my foot gets entangled to the cord. And I knocked the mic, and the poor boy is having a problem as it is. The mic goes like, and I go down like this, and that was the beginning of Sam and David.
You know what I think we should do? I think you should play a little bit, just sing a little bit for us, just to make sure we're on track here. What do you think? I think we're on track. Can we?
I don't know. I don't know what my wife was back there doing.
Yeah. I think we
Shut up, Montana.
Watch yourself.
Oh. Don't you ever feel sad? Lean on me in time to bed. When the day coming and are you there? Hold on. Hold on. I'm coming. Hold on. I'm coming. I'm on my way, your lover. If you get cold, I will be your cover. No need to worry, 'cause I'm near. No need to suffer, 'cause I'm near. So hold on, I'm coming. Hold on, I'm coming. Hold on. Woo!
Pretty good, huh? Yeah. Really? Yeah. That's the new duo now. While all this was happening, Charlie, I think you were born in Mississippi, but you spent a lot of time in Memphis, right when all this stuff was happening. Tell us your version of what was going on in terms of, you were a blues guy, but the blues and soul and gospel all connected. What did that mean for you as an artist?
Wow. Well, like you say, I was into blues, really, but all of it I was listening to, anything from Heart with Heart, old hillbilly music, gospel music. And I was fascinated with the street singers in downtown Memphis, the blues singers. I'd follow them around when I was like 8, 9 years old, listening to them, and I'd watch them playing guitar and try to figure out how to make them chords and stuff. And Memphis has the best gospel radio. Man, it'd be records and recordings from church services, and I would just soak that up. I just loved all that. All that stuff went into making me who I am today, listening to all those influences.
Yeah.
Rockabilly, Johnny Burnett and Dorsey Burnett lived across the street from me. So had a lot to work with.
Mm-hmm. And then Justin, of course, you're listening to soul music as a kid. You're younger, but the influence of soul is still right there for you. Talk about the influence of soul on your music today.
I remember when I was about 9 or 10 years old, and again, grew up singing in church. And you talk about soul music, and for me, one of the links that hit me when I was really young, 8, 9, 10, was the link between faith and soul. Because you know what you talk about, that feeling that you would hear from Otis or Sam or Miss Staples, that they believed what they were singing. It wasn't just about the notes they were singing, or even specifically the lyrics, because like Mavis joked, replacing Jesus with baby, but still there was a faith there in where they were going. And I think that that's what hit me when I was really young, and about the time I was about 10 years old, I found out that that there was a reverend that lived about. I drove it out. It's 7 to 8 minutes from my house. Some might call that stalking. I just call it driving by to see where he lived. But I found out that the Reverend Al Green lived down the street from me, and that used to be the thing, you know. I mean, I grew up in a place called Shelby Forest, Tennessee, which was we call it the Boondocks, and there was one store called the General Store, and when they say General, they mean General. You could get like bait and tackle, or you could get burgers. You could get milk. It really was General, but you used to go down to the General Store just to see if the Reverend Al Green would drive by. But growing up, when you talk about, you know, when they describe Memphis, you know, home of the blues, birthplace of rock and roll. I mean, gospel, country, you know, rhythm and blues, that all became rock and roll. So when you talk about rock and roll, I mean, it really is a fusion of what was already there, the foundation that all, you know, that, you know, 3 out of a cast of amazing characters had already laid down. Yeah. And like they said, it really did come from gospel. So, I mean, church was the first place that I got brave enough to sing. And up until the time I was probably 8, my mother makes a joke that she's surprised, 2 things. She's surprised that I even know what she looks like, and also surprised that I have an obsession with Air Jordans. Because up until the time I was 8, I walked around looking at my feet. I was pretty shy. And then starting to sing in church and starting to really hear gospel music, and starting to hear how it influenced a great like Elvis Presley, and to go, well, what was he listening to that influenced him to make all those gospel albums? And then to realize at 10 years old that so much of that music was made right where I lived. It meant more to me. It was special to me. I felt linked to it in a very special way. So, and you know, for instance, with my latest record, I feel like for the first time I'm really getting an opportunity to infuse. It's, you know, I feel youthful again in a different way, because I feel like it's the first time I've really been able to not only influence it with the sound of my voice, but also going and really, you know, infusing it with the production of a lot of the songs too. So.
At the Grammy Museum, we talk of great Grammy moments, things that happen on that show that are just totally memorable. You had a Grammy moment a couple of years ago when you got to sing with Al Green. Can you just summarize for the kids here how that happened? Because it really wasn't expected to be happening, right? And
there's the producer right back there. The Grammys go live at 5 p.m. on the West Coast, so we can be live at 8 on the East Coast. And unfortunately, there was a couple of performers that had to back out that year. Yep. Mm-hmm. And we were left, all of us I was there playing with someone else. And I came into I walk into my dressing room after the sound check for the artist that I was playing with. And one of my great friends, Ken Ehrlich, and the president of NARIS now, who, funny enough, used to be the president of my publishing company at Zamba, Neil Portnow. So it was always a big supporter for me. I walk into my dressing room, and everybody's looking at me like I owe them money. And I said, "Oh no, this is not good." And you know, a couple of the performers had to back out, and so they asked if I would would play another song. And mind you, this is probably around 2:30 or 3 p.m., so 2 hours before we go on at the Grammys. And if you don't know, Grammys are music's biggest night. So these performances have been rehearsed for weeks at a time. You know, a lot of these performances that you see on there have been, you know, people have been rehearsing for a couple of weeks to really get together because, you know, you saw Miss Staples and the guy, you know, the boys from Mumford and Sons and T-Bone. You know, they did the Levon Helm tribute this year. That was fantastic, by the way. And so, you know, those moments, they do have to be rehearsed. So to make a long story longer, sorry. We have 2 hours to go, and they pull a list out of people that are going to be presenting. And I look, and this is serendipity at its finest. I look on the list, and who do I see but the Reverend Al Green? So I look at Ken, and I hold this, and I point to his name, and immediately, it's like Blue 42, hut, hut, hut. Everybody scatters, and there's phone calls, and so then walk out in the hallway, right about a couple minutes after that, and I see Keith Urban walking down the hallway. I look at Ken again. So we grab Keith, we pull him in my dressing room, we say, hey man, what if we gave you 12, 16 bars to play a solo on this? And then I look on the list again, and I see there's a group that I grew up listening to as well that put their own Philly influence of that soul sound in by the name of Boyz II Men. I said, get him on the phone. So all of a sudden, the only person we haven't spoken to is the Reverend. We got everybody else in line, and at this point it's probably about 3:30. And so we're an hour and a half before we go live. And we go up onto the stage to just start rehearsing the song with hopes that someone's going to get a hold of him. We know he's going to be there to present. Somewhere around 3:45 to 4 o'clock, or very close to whenever the doors open for the Staples Center, you see this mink coat coming down from the rafters. It's almost like the angels. But he comes running onto the stage, and I obviously met him many times before, being from the same city, and he comes running onto the stage. He goes, Justin. Oh, it's so good to see you. I'm sorry I'm late. They called me. I was in the tub. So not only am I taken aback from his entrance, but now I have the visual of a holy bath full of bubbles, and the Reverend Al Green gets a phone call, and he runs into his closet, because this is how my sketch comedy mind works. He runs into his closet like Clark Kent and comes out Superman in the mink coat. And we ran through half of the song. We spoke about where we would trade verses, and it became a Grammy moment. We didn't actually get to rehearse the whole song, but what we did on stage was very free, and freestyle, as we like to say, and so that's how that happened.
A great Grammy moment, right? And a great story.
I was in the tub.
Ben, talk about your roots too, because you have soul in your background as well.
Oh yeah, my background is crazy.
Yeah.
My life just.
I don't want to say
It's been a long music immersion program. My mom is here, and our family has had a music store. Hi, Mom. We're in the White House, and we've had a music store, and the doors are still open today, called the Claremont Folk Music Center, and it's been open since 1958, and it's focused in and around American roots music.
Yeah. But you also, when you sing, despite the fact that I think I first met you, you were playing with Ringo at the Grammy Museum.
We were his
right?
backup. My band was his backup band.
That's right. That's right. But clearly, the way you approach your singing, there's elements of soul in that as well. Describe that. Where does that influence come from? Who were you listening to as a kid that gave you that soul connection?
Oh, I was listening to Mavis and Charlie.
Yeah.
And Sam. I was listening to all these folks up here. I grew up with them, still growing, trying.
Yeah. Well, I think it's safe to say that soul music is a part of every great American singer. I mean, you can't not, it's there. It's there. And it will continue to be there, like I said.
I was listening to Journey on the radio the other day, and I was like, if Sam Cooke was alive and could hear Steve Perry, I wonder what he would think.
Yeah. So, let me open it up. Let's allow the kids to ask some questions, okay? So, if you would. Yes. Yes. He needs Sam. He needs you. That's Ken Ehrlich, by the way. That's the producer of the Grammy Awards, right? Thank you. Good job.
Love you too. I see you. I love you too.
So if you ask a question, I'll acknowledge you. Stand up. Sam Moore, tell us where you're from and speak loudly so we can hear your question. Yes, we'll start with you.
I'm Allie from Herndon, Virginia.
Okay.
Obviously, your album, like how many years ago when you worked with Timbaland, it's a lot different than your new album. Were you like scared at all to see how the public would take it, since it's very different than what's popular right now? And I really loved it, just by the way.
Well, thank you. You know, I got into a funny conversation. Actually, it's not dissimilar to the conversation Ben and I were having before we walked out here. We're talking about art and commerce and how those two things live. You know, my first and second albums were influenced by probably, you know, most of all the music I was listening to at the time. And, you know, if you listen to my second record, funny enough, I was listening to, this may not make much sense because I feel like you're influenced by a lot of different styles of music, growing up loving music. But at the end of the day, your voice is your voice. And you have to build around what is instinctive to you, because I think that's also a great character of soul. You know, like I said, if you believe what you hear, to me, that's soul. That's good music. That's soul music. And so to answer your question, with this record, I obviously had taken a little bit of time. I took a little bit of time in between my first and second record, and a little bit more with this third album. But, you know, to be honest with you, not really. You know, I don't think that, you know, that shouldn't be the impetus. That shouldn't be the seed for what you're creating, because I think it has, you know, when you talk about it coming from a pure place, you know, I don't think you can let those things influence, you know, what it is that you're making. Mm-hmm. So, not too much. Mm-hmm. No. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you love it, you're going to love playing it. And that's half the battle, I think. And you can't worry about who likes it and who doesn't, because if you love it, that's what's most important.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, sir. You, sir.
Hi, everyone. I am Jordan Reese from Herndon Middle School in Virginia. Go Theater. Mr. Harper, you know, I love your music. My mom loves your music, and I just always grew up listening to you. And I was just wondering, like, what inspired you to become a singer, performer? Like, how old were you? What were your inspirations? And yeah.
You know, I know people who grew up around a lot of music and are musicians. I know people who grew up with no music in the house and are musicians. So there's really no rules. If you feel it, just grab at it. Always keep pen to paper. Writing songs and writing your own songs and feelings and ideas is a crucial element, I think. Learning an instrument, if you also want to do that, can influence songwriting. So just having the discipline to keep, as the First Lady said, the discipline. Once your fingers start really hurting, that's the time to really start practicing.
Great. Let's see.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Luis Rosado Bermudez. I'm from Howard W. Blake High School of the Arts in Tampa Bay. And I don't know if I'm going to need this or not. So, and my question is to all, it's an open question to all of you guys. Like, what were some of the challenges that you all faced to become such artists, to become such legends in the music industry?
Okay. Mavis, you want to try that one first?
Well, in gospel, my family sang strictly gospel when we started. And that was a thing, we couldn't be heard a lot. We couldn't be heard a lot because, well, people who were up at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning when the gospel shows came on the radio. But then, as far as that was, we would continue to keep trying. You know, you got to climb that ladder to get to where you want to go. Nothing's going to stop you. But a lot of our challenges were me not wanting to rehearse. I didn't like to rehearse. And my father could tell me anything to make me see a better light. So he would tell me, he said, Mavis, listen, baby, your voice is your gift from God. You don't know, and I don't know music. I don't know what key I sing in. But he told me, he said, if you don't use it, he'll take it back. And from that time on, I was the first one in rehearsal. That's kind of.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Adrian Williams, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, Stax Music Academy. And I just wanted to know, besides just church, how is your environment, the people around you, the places you've been, how has that inspired your music? How has that grown you as a child to do music?
Mm-hmm. Someone? Take it.
Well, I firmly believe that, you know, ever since I wrote my first song when I was probably 12, I believe everything is a song. I believe they're all around us. Sometimes when you're sitting in a restaurant, you can just look around and see the people around you, and there's songs, there's stories everywhere. Everybody's got a story. And a lot of times, especially when you talk about soul music, it's not just the story, but it's the way, you know, it's like when you talk to your friend, it's like, well, you know, it's the way you said it, man. But that's true in music too. You know, everybody's got a story, and at the essence of a lot of songs, if you look at them in a broad way, a lot of them are cover some of the same subjects, but it's the way it's said, because we're all so different and unique, and that's what makes us special. It really is the way that you're able to say that. And so I don't know. I've traveled a lot from a very young age, and so you see all these things around you. But I will say, everything that I instinctively learned before that, you know, where you are right now, everything that I instinctively learned before that, it stays with you. Yeah. You know, it really does stay with you. So, anybody else? Did I cover it?
You covered that one. Okay, now we're good. Let's see. Noah. saxophone player.
Hi, my name's Noah. I'm from Howard W. Blake from Tampa, Florida. Justin, this is towards you. When you were first starting off, did you ever find yourself having doubts about, not the music or being able to sing or anything like that, but having doubts making your music known to the public?
Well, yes and no, because I did also have doubts about my voice and my music. I think that that's only natural. It's easy to second guess yourself. I find a lot of times when you're working on melodies or lyrics or even chord progressions, I find that you feel like you want to leave no stone unturned, so to speak. But a lot of times you end up going, after the 8th or 9th idea, you end up going, what was that first thing we did? Yeah, it's like you go back and you go, what was that first thing we did? And it usually ends up being the thing. It usually ends up being the song that becomes the song that is the song that you hear. I think Ben said it best, there's no rules. This is one of those amazing things that's been created that there really are no rules to it. It can be as simple and as complex as you like to make it. But if it sings to you and you believe it, I think that's, and it doesn't have to be, guilt-stricken or, some songs are good that way. But I think also, too, it starts with an idea, whether it be 1, 4, 5, or an idea for a song.
Success also.
Yeah.
Success being happy with what you put out, or is success other people liking what you put out?
Yeah, I think also. Yeah, I think going back to, if you love it, it's there. I think about. I said this recently in an interview, and the interviewer looked at me like I was speaking Japanese. She didn't understand what I was saying, but I said to her, because I have 20 songs with this record, and I'm going to put the second half of it, out at some point this year. And she said, how do you come up with all these songs? And then how do you figure out how to put it out? And what's the marketing? And I said, listen, if I finish these songs and I put them on in my car, and that was the only place they ever got played, I would be equally as happy, because it's there and it's done. Right. And it's something that I can enjoy, that I can remember the process I went through and the moments that I shared with the people I collaborated with. And I think when you find those types of people, like, for me, working with someone like Timberland, who's a savant when it comes to, sound, when you find someone like that you connect with, and when you have a harp player and Ben can play a shoe if he Ben plays everything. But if the four of us, if I sat down on keys and Charlie got on the harp and Ben got on the guitar and Mavis took the vocals, and we started to collaborate on something, that conversation back and forth, how the rhythm of what Ben's playing might influence the timing of the chords that I would play. That conversation, that's music to me. And it can happen in its modern form, like you'd hear sometimes with Timberland and I. It can happen anyway. Yeah. Like you said, there's no rules.
Yeah. I got time for one more question. I know you wanted to ask this question, make it quick, and then we're going to end with some music. Go ahead. Tell us who you are.
I'm Natika Jackson, and I go to Woodrow Wilson High School in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Well, I know y'all already going to do it, but I just want to know, can y'all perform for us, like, real quick?
Perform?
Yes.
That was your question?
Yes.
All right. We got something coming up, a surprise for you in just a second. But before we do, I know there's one other question. Yes, I know how important this is. I saw you aching. Last question.
My name is Jordan Adams from Herndon Middle School. Justin Timberlake, I was wondering...
Yes, Jordan Adams.
if Is there any way that you usually get your inspiration to write your songs? And I'm a really big fan, by the way.
You said that last part really fast. What did you say?
Inspiration.
The inspiration.
Oh, just where do you
So,
find
yeah.
inspiration? Well, like we said before, it can start anywhere. You know, it can start with something you might see. You might see a couple walking down the street, and they're holding hands, and the next thing you know, you're writing things like, I wanna hold your hand. You know what I mean?
There you go.
And it can start with, when you hear that, it's like that's as much a character of the song as the idea of love and happiness. Yeah. So it comes from all different types of places. I think for all of you here that are aspiring songwriters, which I think we're seeing that a lot of you are, I think you just have to constantly, keep your satellites open, and look around you and know that, like I said, everybody's got a story to tell. And I think if you can hone in on a simple idea of that story and you can find a way to communicate it from your voice, because that's what makes it unique, then you probably have yourself a pretty good song.
Yeah. Okay. While Mavis is going to leave, you need to get to rehearsals.
Yes,
so I'm going to help you off here. Okay. And then, ready? Here we go. Yeah. Okay, well, we have our final song, okay, and then we will wrap up. So we're going to end up... Yeah, you can take that. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mavis Staples, Justin Timberlake. And we're going to end today with a song, Charlie Musselwhite and Ben Harper, from their brand new album, I believe.
Charlie and I wrote in the studio together. It's called We Can't End This Way. Do we have any singers? Because I'd hate to do this alone. So anybody? The chorus is easy, just goes, we can't end this way. 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 We
and Charlie Musselwhite. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Talk about some soul singing, right? Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Well, we've come to the end of our program. I just want to say on behalf of the First Lady and the White House and all of the production people and especially the artists, we're very happy that you're here today. We're very grateful that you're interested in American music, especially soul music. We want you to go home and let everybody know that soul music lives, that soul music is a part of all of us. Listen to it long, listen to it loud, and have fun with it because it's a great American music form. Thanks for coming. We'll see you.